oftentimes people have these really amazing ideas, and sometimes they may come from like my self-founder story or journey, but it may be that it really doesn't happen to enough people that has a burning issue or problem that they want to pay for.
So we do a lot of stuff to our hair, and as a byproduct of that, it happens to our scalp also, right? And so, can you talk about some of the things that we may not even realize going in our community that actually damages our hair, but historically we've just been in the habit of doing these things to our hair?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's gaining a lot of popularity. Traction alopecia, for example. Traction alopecia is like hair loss due to tight hairstyles, and we love our braids, our ponytails, our our slick baby hairs, but it actually doesn't require that much force to kind of start ripping them out, and we basically normalized like having bumps or pain after braids, but that shouldn't be happening if it's done correctly.
So let's talk a little bit more about. I used to have braids a while ago, and I always grew up thinking, well, this is just par for the course. Like you ask for this, nice braids, and this is what comes with it. It costs the floss. So how do you get a community of people who may be going to somebody in their kitchen or maybe in somebody's basement to like, look, you're actually doing yourself more of a disservice than you think. How do you communicate that to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I would also say another thing that's hard about braids is sometimes you don't know it's tight until you're halfway through the head. Like
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
start feeling the pain. But I think making sure that you are looking for a stylist or friends or family that are doing the hair that are really focused on like healthy hair practices. And so when you say like this is like feeling tight or whatever, they're willing to redo it. And so I really look for that in the stylists that I work with, or like stylists that I go to. I make sure that they're okay with, they don't see me as like a diva for saying, hey, this is a little bit too tight, or please redo this one. They're usually happy to do that because they don't want your edges ripped out and you not coming back, right? Or you're not happy, right? With services.
For sure. And so when I see people like you who are doing these remarkable things, leveraging technology to help our community in ways that historically we haven't had, I get interested in how these ideas came about because you could have done a lot of things. You could have decided, I want to do, a hair moisturizer. You could have said, I'm going to go do a new style of hot comb, but you decided to use technology to help educate us. What was the impetus that said, this is the angle I'm going to take to make our community be healthier in this way?
Yeah, so it came actually from my own personal hair health journey. Originally, my idea for HairDays was around like a hair logging app, which is like, basically like a MyFitnessPal for hair and scalp health, which we still have a lot of those elements. But in 2016, I almost passed away. I was hospitalized in the ICU, in and out, lost a lot of my hair, and I saw the deep connection between health, mental health, and overall wellness. And oftentimes, hair is seen as like it's just beauty, it's just superficial. But I realized how it took a major toll on my self esteem, and I realized that it's just not. It's not only me, and that's was really the inspiration behind like the AI approach to what we're doing now, and as well as tying in wellness and um, education in what we're providing.
I think there's something there, and I don't have a question behind it, but I want to say I think there's something to that because, if you like research like scientists scientifically about hair, it's like they call it dead follicle. It's like it's not really like a nerve in it, right? So like your hair, you don't feel it when it gets cut, as scientists will tell you. But like I have a lot of hair, number one,
Hmm.
and I can feel something when my hair is cut. And so I don't know what that is, or if that's spiritual or neurological. I don't know how to define that. But the fact that people say, well, it's just hair and you can cut it and it's like it doesn't mean anything to you. To your point about confidence, like it's more than just, a beauty thing, or it's more than
Oh,
just, in that way. But I do feel like there's something. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I didn't really have a question, but I do feel like there's something more to it than just something sitting on top of my head.
yeah, in many cultures, your hair is like it's part of your spirituality or ritual or even religion. And I definitely think there's a lot of power in your hair. And it definitely is tied to how you feel about yourself, right? You
Yeah,
look good, you feel good. I 100% believe in that saying. I think also hair is also a area for creativity, and so
yeah, yeah.
what looks good to one is, it allows us to like empower ourselves through creativity. Like, hey, my hair is turquoise because I love turquoise, for example.
Straight up, I love it. So when you get an idea for an app like this, how do you start off? So you like, do you automatically think I need to go raise money? Do you automatically think I need to go learn how to code? Why? What are
Mm,
the first steps you take? Because I'm imagining, because I did not read that you were an engineer. I read that you're a scientist, and so talk to me about how do you get started in this way?
Yeah, so actually, the reason I'm an engineer is I was really passionate about solving, like I said, I'm interested in big problems that are overlooked. And I was really interested in building technology. And when I would talk to investors, they're like, you're not an engineer. So I was like, fine, I'll get my PhD in engineering. You can't tell me that anymore. But through the journey, I realized that in building a business, you really need a team. And so, really, you should really reflect on your background and where your strengths are, and just figure out where, like, depending on what you're building, what the weaknesses are, and fill your team with those weaknesses. So, like, holistically, you guys are rock solid in all the areas that are required to build your business. But to answer your question about how do you start, first step always should be customer discovery. One of the number one reasons, I think it's like number two. So I think number one reason most businesses fail is because they run out of money. Number two is because they don't have customers. But I would argue the reason that they run out of money is because they don't have enough customers. So I really feel like the number one issue really is you're building. Oftentimes people have these really amazing ideas, and sometimes they may come from like myself, founder story or journey, but it may be that it really doesn't happen to enough people that has a burning issue or problem that they want to pay for. And so customer discovery is the first step. And so customer discovery is basically going out and talking to your potential customer. And it's not asking them what your idea is or telling them what your idea is and asking for their feedback on the idea. That's like second, third phase of customer discovery process. It's really about understanding their problems and listening for, are they saying what you think like your idea is, or like coming somewhere close to that, right? So really listening to the customer and understanding what their problems are and building for that instead of building and they will come. That works sometimes if you're lucky. But 9 times out of 10 it does not work.
So talk to me, because I hear you. I want to reiterate what you just said. It's not about telling them what your idea is and asking them what they think. It's really trying to dig into what their problems are and what maybe they be doing today to solve those problems. So many entrepreneurs during that process can't help themselves but to talk about their idea and their solution. So how do you frame those questions to ensure that you're not tainting the responses that you're getting?
Yeah, so a good place to start is open-ended questions. So if I was starting Hair Days over today, again, I may ask people like, "Hey, tell me about uh, your your hair. Like, do you face any problems or challenges? What are the number one things that you wish that you could solve?" I would also add that people are really good at telling the problems, but not necessarily solutions. So people may come up with cool ideas, but oftentimes the ideas they come up with may not even be things that they would use themselves. So you have to be careful with that when you're asking people for feedback, because they'll come up with some really cool ideas, and then you ask them, "Would you use that?" And they're like, "Maybe sounds cool," but in reality, it's just a cool idea, not something that they would actually really use. So there's a lot of bias there in the feedback. So just listen to them talking about their story, and you have to extrapolate or figure out what they really mean. Like read between the lines.
So how did you come to a place where you knew that people would pay for this? Because it's one thing to say, "Hey, I have a conditioner for you." It's another thing to say, "Hey, I have an educational tool that actually helps you track to find the conditioner." How
Yeah,
did you get to a place that you knew they would pull out their wallet?
yeah. So I personally interviewed hundreds and hundreds of women that around their problems and concerns and so on. So that's kind of through the customer discovery process. I realized that um, we have something here that we're building. So yeah, so then we push forward with the development process.
Yeah. So there was this quote I found. You were doing another interview, and I'm going to tell you what you said, and I have a question. You said,
Okay.
You said there's a classic inventor's mistake of being so caught up in problem solving that you take for granted that the way your solution is built and the way that your customer will find the way your customer may find it most useful may be slightly different. So many of us, you remember saying that? First of all,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so many of us start off in business because we have an idea that we just know will work, or we assume it will work in the marketplace. And what you're saying is, often we're wrong. And so, how do we ensure that we avoid that trap of being so romantic about the idea? Because what will happen, to your point about customer discovery, is we'll get so romantic about our ideas, we'll taint our questions in a way to get the answers that we want.
Yes, we will ask leading questions. And when you ask leading questions, you're gonna always hear what you want to hear. Always. I mean, I oftentimes use like dating analogies, but I think it also happens in like the dating world, right? Oftentimes you're like, does he really like me? Does she really like me? Do they really like me? And you everything they do, you're kind of wrapping around this fantasy of them loving you or wanting to be with you, but they're telling you through their actions, through their feedback, through everything that they're not interested, but you really want them to say yes, right? Or really want them to be with you. That happens in business too, right? It's just a human nature that we want people, we want to be right. And it's not necessarily about always about ego. It's about like, we're so passionate about what we're doing. We don't want to be wrong, right? But in business, and especially if you're building a high tech venture, you have to be okay with realizing that you're wrong and pivoting and doing that quickly.
So I log into the app the first time. Talk to me about some of the questions you ask or things you ask me to do to help develop a profile for myself.
Yeah, so today we're asking a lot about your symptoms and concerns. So when you log in, of course, you create your profile. Right now, you can also log in with social. And then once you're in the app, we're asking about your symptoms, concerns, like goals. And then we're curating our educational insights based on that. Um, Later this year, we'll be also introducing a lot of the hair analysis related AI tools to help even further enhance your product discovery and hair journey process.
Yeah. So on the other side of that, I'm assuming because I don't know your business model, so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
You may suggest a certain type of conditioner or a certain, you know, for me it might be one day an aftershave or something like that, right? And so how do you get the information from those products to be able to match me to the best things for me? So I may say my symptoms are X, Y, and Z, and you give me, T-Gen or something that will fix my problem. So how are you marrying me
Yeah.
technologically to the thing?
Yeah, so I'm excited that my team is full of we have cosmetic chemists, we have dermatologists, trichologists, cosmetologists, like all the ologists. And so we have a research team that does a lot of the research behind the ingredient level analysis and then matching keys. We also do partner with brands so that we can get more robust data. But even if we're not directly working with the brand, we can still do the research on the ingredients that are on the label to be able to make a better, more informed recommendation.
Yeah, so there's so many brands out there. How do you decide? Okay, here's the slate of the ones we're going to review next. Like, how does that process work?
We do it based on popularity and which ones are most common. We were always looking for the next best product out there as well to add to our portfolio.
Yeah, and so there's, I'm sure you know this even probably better than I. There's this movement towards things that have less chemicals,
Yes.
that are less, that are better sustainable for overall health and well-being.
Yes.
So as we become more knowledgeable about the products chemistry, about the makeup of the products, the things used, I'm assuming you're not just giving me recommendations, but maybe also educating me, or one day you'll be educating me. So talk to me about trends that you're seeing with people's desires changing, with the types of products they want to use, and how Hair Days may help us there.
Yeah, so I mean, you're absolutely right, and people are really becoming more informed and more of a informed, educated user around or customer around ingredients and like what works and what doesn't work. And in addition to that, like product companies as well as like government is also listening to that as well. And so they're changing things based on what the consumer is looking for, right? Like, we demanded eventually there has to be a change on the other end, right, to meet that demand. So we actually have a grant through the what's it Health and Human Services through the federal government to help support some of the research around helping Black women avoid endocrine disrupting chemicals in their product. So endocrine disrupting chemicals are basically, you can see as toxic ingredients that tend to affect the endocrine system, so like hormones in the body. So that could be reproductive issues, that could be why it leads to fibroids, like, or like cancers and so on. So there's a lot of ingredients that are in our products that may not be the safest. And so we are working really hard to be able to um, provide the education and insight so that individuals can make more informed decisions on their product purchase.
Do you see a day where you may just develop your own products to help support the need in the marketplace for better things?
Possibly, but I really want us to be brand agnostic. I think that there's so many products already existing, and one of the issues is which one works, which one doesn't work. And I want to be able to take a non-biased approach when we're making recommendations versus saying, because if we have our own brand, then I would assume that we're more likely, hey, you should try HairDays branded products. But I really want to be able to educate the consumer and help them navigate these thousands or millions of products that exist already. Let's do that first.
Yeah, 100%. Like, so I think about what you're doing from, let's say, from an investor's perspective. Historically, we've gotten so much pushback from venture capital community that'll say, well, what the black hair market is not big enough. Obviously, we know that's not true. So, so talk to me about the types of questions you've had to answer, your fundraising journey in general, and how you've positioned this as like this is a big opportunity.
Especially in the past, like a year or two, things have changed a lot in industry where AI, machine learning, deep tech is like ubiquitous almost, or like it's trying to be like every industry is trying to adopt AI. So there's a big shift there. So, but in hair care, unlike many other industries, it's really untapped. So it's like when you're entering a new market, the question that investors are asking is, do people want it? Is that why it doesn't exist in the space, or are you just like realize? Are you just lucky where you've identified an opportunity that no one else has really wanted to tap into? And so that's one of the major struggles in pitching in an area that is really new and innovative.
Yeah. So because I was reading your LinkedIn and it talks about some multi-billion-dollar fragmented hair market. So often we hear, on shows like Shark Tank or even in venture capital offices, we'll hear startup founders, entrepreneurs say, if I can just get like 1% of this market, then that'll be like gazillion dollars, right? Just like it's crazy. And there's a lot of pushback when they have those types of positionings. Like if you can just get if you can get just X of Y. And so how do you position this as a big opportunity, but still be grounded in what you can actually achieve?
Yeah, we talk about it from a phased rollout approach instead of saying like, you know what, in the next year or so we're just going to capture like 50% of this multi-billion-dollar market. Instead of saying that, we talk about like this segment the market even further down and to much smaller like fragments, and talk about how you can start with this one niche and then how it builds on to the next domain and so on and grows from there. Um, a lot of the work that we're doing, I see a lot of value also in the healthcare space, right? So we're starting in the beauty space because there's it's like an easier path to revenue and an easier path to enter the market. But there's also so many other areas that we can work in, like from drug discovery process to the more health related disorders, for example, like analyzing different forms of alopecia, for example. The hair and scalp care space is like a blue ocean right now, and so there's a lot of opportunities to grow, and talking about this stage rollout process is definitely one that has helped us.
They just had me thinking about something that I didn't think about this before, but what I see like a lot of value in like the data that you get to, compile, so like you're able to over time be able to say, you know what, if we drill down in the data, we can tell, women in the southwest of the United States deal more with dandruff than women in the Midwest. And that could be valuable to, some companies. So did
Okay.
you see this as a data play, or did you see this purely as like, a solution for people who have bad hair? Because there's both there in my view.
Yeah, we see it as a data from the perspective of like
Yeah.
summary or reports, not selling individual data. So we
Yeah.
don't we're not in the business of selling like Susie from like Arkansas, like
Yeah,
Arkansas,
but insights,
but
insights. Yeah,
insights, yeah, but
yeah,
insights that can help ultimately help the end consumer. So like you said, like, hey, people in this environment are having these type of struggles or concerns. um, Being able to help individuals that are tackling those concerns better do that. I want to empower individuals to businesses, brands, you name it, to solve the end consumers problems.
I love that. I love that. So talk to me, because you mentioned this when you mentioned, when you talk to venture capitalists and angel investors, well, how come this isn't in the market yet, or is this something that you love and actually wouldn't work? Talk to me about how important timing is, because could you have done this 10 years ago, or would there still be an opportunity 10 years from now? We don't know, but how important is timing?
Timing is everything. You can look at it in even other industries. Like, I cannot remember the name of the company, so forgive me for this, but even in the like personal computer spaces or like smaller devices space, like there are companies that were in the market before Apple, right, for example,
Yeah, yeah,
but they didn't win because the timing wasn't right. People didn't want what they were offering yet. They were not ready to adopt this personal computer at home device. So it's timing matched with good technology, matched with like whatever meeting the consumer or the customers and goals, is everything. Yeah, you can have the best idea and it won't work for the next 10 years just because the market's not ready,
yeah.
or you're too early, or you could be too late.
So
That
what did you see in the market that said this is the right time?
So I would say that I think we were a little bit early, but we stuck with it because we saw where the industry is going, and we just ignored naysayers. And so we were lucky that in the with my background or a PhD in background research, we were able to secure a number of grants that allowed us to keep going and keep doing the research while the industry catches up. So
Yeah,
now the some of the like the bigger brands are really interested in what we're building, but back a year or so ago, it was very different conversation.
yeah. Yeah, I've heard you talk about grants a couple times, and I read online about some of the grants. Is there, talk to me about that fundraising journey outside of grants? Is this something that you've already raised angel investor dollars from, venture capitalists from, or are you on that path?
We have secured a number of like angel and venture capital investments through our network, and but I always lean on grants because I think it's a really powerful tool that is underused and under leveraged, and I definitely.
Non-dilutive, often.
Oh, that too. Yeah. I think I should have led with that part, right?
I'm not giving up nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And also it allows grants are grants don't have the expectation of you have to have a product at the end. You could be tinkering and figuring this out, and that empowers you to be more creative because you're not worried about, well, what if I don't hit my
Yeah,
milestones, right? Like, as long as you can say, hey, I tried this. This was my scientific approach. This is why we went this direction, and it didn't go well. You can still get another grant.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
put you like? What? How did you find out like that was an option for you? Like, was it because you were doing, something that was scientific and biologically related, or like, so like, what matched you to that journey? Grant
The
specifically,
grant,
yeah.
yeah, grants were. I think one of my advisors, I think, told me about one of the grant opportunities, and then it's kind of like most times in networking, right? You start at this party, you talk about what you're doing, and then someone tells you about this other opportunity and this other opportunity. So it kind of ended like that, like started like that. However, I would say there are plenty of grants that exist that are non like deep tech or research heavy grants, right? They may be on the smaller side, but they're still pretty sizable, like $10,000,
Mhm.
$25,000. Yeah, or some of the more like deep tech grants, maybe quarter million, half a million, $1 million. But there's still a lot of opportunities to tap into that, um, while you're trying to figure out exactly how things work. And a lot of those grant programs also have customer discovery built in. So they'll teach you how to interview people. They'll teach you how to figure out, like read between the lines, like I was mentioning. So I know I keep bringing up the grants part, but it's for a reason.
I love it. I love it. So there's this old Wayne Gretzky quote where he said, you can't skate to where the puck is. You got to skate to where it's going. And when you started this business a few years ago, like we talked about AI, but it was really more about crypto and blockchain, and maybe the metaverse, back then. Um, how did AI come into the conversation? Like, what was the impetus to bring that artificial intelligence into the conversation years ago
Yeah,
when we weren't talking about that at the scale that we are now?
I think we realized that one of the issues is, um, individuals that are trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work for their hair. That self-diagnosis piece is oftentimes incorrect. So, um, so realizing that individuals are like struggling with being able to kind of, first you got to actually identify what the real problem is, and then you're able to treat it. And so when I talk to a number of our experts, like the different trichologists, which are hair experts, or dermatologists, oftentimes the individual will come in and say, "Hey, I have oily hair," or "I have dry hair," and oftentimes they have the opposite. So if they're treating their hair for being oily, right, when they have dry hair, they might be actually perpetuating the problem, making it even worse. And so being able to use computer vision or AI to be able to extract those concerns and automatically recommend the problems, recommend based on those problems, is where the idea came from.
Um, Going back to when I talked about, what your LinkedIn said, this is a multi-billion-dollar fragmented hair market. I want to pull out that word fragmented because I think it's important. Um, that in so many ways, in my mind at least, that means consolidation will happen on some level. Either you're working towards being acquired, or you're working towards being the acquirer. Because if this thing is so fragmented, then there's so much opportunity for big players to become bigger and small players to become big themselves. So, what are your goals when you think about, especially when you go out to raise money? That a lot of the questions can be, what's the exit? What's the out on this? Are you working towards being bought, or do you work towards, what, I want to be the next Procter and Gamble?
I think we're still early enough that either option is viable, but I definitely want to take it to like a sizable, like multi-billion-dollar stage, before we decide to exit. I definitely am really passionate about the problems we're solving here, and I really want to stick with it as long as possible.
Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or this is? Because I know you were studying different things that don't always necessarily lead towards entrepreneurship, but maybe they lead towards great careers. But
Yeah.
talk to me about that journey for yourself.
Actually, I did not know I wanted to be an entrepreneur at all. I I think it was like in the back of my head, but I didn't know what what entrepreneur meant, or how you get started or anything like that. When I was a PhD candidate, though, I did know at that point that I was really passionate about entrepreneurship, and so I saw the PhD curriculum as an opportunity to be able to kind of figure it out as I go. I see PhD journey very similar to entrepreneurship because we're building a solution or technology for particular problem. The real difference I see is that in the PhD world, the the end goal could be just new knowledge, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be a business or like finances or something like that. Where in the entrepreneurship world, unless you're a nonprofit, the real goal is to be able to generate revenue and, in my eyes, also change people's lives.
I love that. I'm going to ask you to do something. So I want you to offer some words of encouragement to people who may be on similar paths, and they may not even realize it yet. Because I'm going to position this, and then I'm going to throw it to you. All right. So we talked about, going back to the earlier conversation of, there's so many things we do, and we don't even know how damaging they could be. to ourselves, particularly around healthcare, wellness, and etc. Whether that be things we put on our body, things that we put in our mouths. And so with that, there is this awakening of, about the foods we eat, things we put on our body, happening in our community. And so there is then an opportunity for us to be part of the solution and not just wait for somebody else to solve it for us. So, can you offer some encouragement, words of advice, leave us with something? Because again, you were on a very research driven, scientific, path for people who may not even realize that the idea is in them, but they're searching for that thing that will set them on fire. What would you say to somebody, the Tiffany, from 6 years ago or whatever years ago, that is on this journey, don't realize where it's going to end up, but has something that will be contributive to our community? What would you say?
If you're on an entrepreneurship journey, like you know that you have this cool idea or industry that you're interested in disrupting, like I would say that to make sure that you find find the solution that you are passionate about, like you have a burning passion, because there will be many times that it's ups and down. Like within a given day in the startup world, I get the best news, the worst news, in between, like, and that's
Every
normal.
day, every day.
Yeah, within a day. So it's not even like I had a bad week. No, I might have had a
Yeah.
bad hour. Like,
And then the
and then
next
I'm like,
hour was great.
yeah. So the realizing that it is for you. Sometimes you may discount your discredit, like consider yourself like maybe it's not for you. You're not the right person to bring this vision to life. But realize that this whole imposter type syndrome, even the most successful people that you see are feeling this way. The difference is they see that as like they feel this and they just know it's like, okay, it'll pass, right? And how I deal with that is I'm like, okay, why am I feeling this way? I kind of talk to myself like, oh, why am I feeling this way? And then address the problem directly. So like I realized that for me personally, I get more stressed when I have this problem and I have no idea of how to solve it. So instead of leaving it lingering, I'm like, okay, this is my problem. Like, how can I solve it? How can I tackle it? And then create a plan to do so. And then you could like that feeling can go to the side, right? I know it sound like I make it sound like it's so simple, and it's not. It's actually a lot of work and a lot of practice to be able to do
Yeah.
that. And but I think it's a really powerful skill is to be able to push past the feeling of like the imposter syndrome or like feeling like it's not for you. It is for you. If you're passionate about it, it is for you. You just have to find a scrappy way to get it done.
People who want to learn more about you and your journey with Hair Days, where do we find out more about you guys?
Yes, you can follow me personally on LinkedIn. You can also follow the Hair Days page on LinkedIn or me on social media, and I will send you those handles. So it's on Instagram is my Hair Days, and then on LinkedIn is Hair Days, and then
Wow.
on my personal page on LinkedIn is Tiffany St. Bernard.
Doc, it's good to talk to you. Really good to talk
Thank
to you.
you.
It's my pleasure.